We all make decisions. Every day we make hundreds of decisions. Now, most of these decisions are minor, inconsequential. Coffee or latte, vegetables or fries. For those who are very active on Grindr, swipe left on a shirtless Chris Cuomo or swipe right. Hey, it's me, Chrissy C! But every once in a while, we are faced with an opportunity or a decision that could have a lasting impact on our life. Recently, I was presented with a business opportunity, and when I say recently, this all happened within the past week or so. One of my good friends that I have known since high school, he is a successful business owner. Somehow, he was introduced to a former NFL player who's only been out of the league for a couple of years now. Now, the former player, he was wanting to collaborate and start a podcast, so my friend wanted to bring me into the deal. The primary focus of this potential business was selling betting pick against the spread. Now, I asked my friend, why do you need me for this? They wanted to use my platform since I already have an established audience here on YouTube. They were going to bring in a litany of former NFL and NBA players onto this channel. We're talking big names, star players, guys that you would know about. They wanted to bring them on the channel, have me host the show, upload 2, 3, 4 videos every week with the primary goal of selling my audience their expert picks. I let him pitch me. I listened to him for a little while. Long story short, the answer was a hard no. I told him, I have been telling this audience for years now, never buy gambling picks from anyone. All these so-called experts, all these self-described handicappers, they all have one thing in common. They always lose. No one wins betting sports besides the sports books. And the less than 1% of gamblers that actually do win make a living off of it, the real experts, they're not selling their information to the public. My friend said, but these are former players. They have real insight. Yeah, professional athletes, they are very, very well known for being horrific gamblers. Charles Barkley, prime example. Just because you played in the NFL or the NBA, it doesn't mean you know how to bet the NFL or NBA. If I had taken this opportunity, I would have absolutely destroyed my credibility. This channel would have been dead. How could I tell you for 3 years not to buy picks from pretend experts, then beg you to buy picks from me? It just wouldn't be right. I made the decision to turn down this opportunity. Many years ago, ESPN, they were faced with a somewhat similar decision. For decades, ESPN was able to maintain their credibility as the worldwide leader in sports. The company was indestructible, #1 network on cable, millions of viewers every day. There were other media companies who tried to launch networks to compete with ESPN. Every one of them failed. Now sure, FS1 is still alive today, barely, but FS1, they were never competition to ESPN. They're not even competition to ESPN today. I think it was about 10 years ago, ESPN was faced with a choice. We can continue with this proven formula that's made us billions of dollars for decades now, or we can accept a RuPaul-like makeover and transition into the worldwide leader in woke. One choice guarantees that ESPN at least maintains their credibility. The other choice would inevitably destroy the company. Obviously, we all know what choice ESPN decided to make. Today, ESPN has absolutely no credibility. Over the last 3 or 4 years, ESPN, they have finally felt the financial effects of their decision. Yesterday afternoon, for the first time ever, Disney released ESPN's financials to the public separately from the rest of the company. Now, I have been telling you guys that this was coming for a while now. Yesterday, Disney finally released the numbers, and it ain't pretty. Through the first 9 months of this year, ESPN generated $13.2 billion in revenue, a decline of 35%. But KC, that is amazing! Revenue may have dropped, but ESPN is still printing money. Unfortunately for the non-binary mouse, that's just not the case. Profit was down 20% to $1.5 billion. We're talking a loss of billions of dollars in the span of just 9 months. Now, although I can't confirm this since Disney has kept ESPN's financials a secret for decades, I would imagine that profit has been declining at the worldwide leader in woke for the past few years now. Seriously, how else can you explain ESPN having a massive round of layoffs every 2 years? The truth is, ESPN is struggling, and they have been struggling for a while. And look, their dedication to Wiener is not the only reason that the network is sinking to the bottom of the woke sea. Now, that's definitely part of it. Some might even argue that's the primary reason, but there's also another big reason for the struggles at ESPN. Their business model is antiquated. For decades, ESPN had arguably the best business model in television. They had over 100 million subscribers, paying them $10, $12 every month for access to their network. But a large portion of those subscribers, they never watched ESPN. If they wanted cable, they didn't have a choice in the matter. ESPN, they leveraged cable and satellite providers to include their network in base packages. So all those women who wanted access to Lifetime or WeTV, all those patrons of Club Shay Shay who wanted access to Logo and GTV, they also had to pay for access to ESPN, even though they never watched it. Those days are over. Over the past 5 years, ESPN's lost almost 40 million cable subscribers. 40 million subscribers that they will never get back. But the reason that their business model is antiquated has very little to do with cord cutting or cable providers moving ESPN to a more expensive package. In this modern era of television and streaming, there is one king and one king only: original content. If you don't provide original content, you're just not going to survive. ESPN, they only provide one stream of original content, and it's becoming prohibitively expensive to produce: live sports. But KC, ESPN has plenty of original content. Oh yeah, they do? Sure, they have First Take, they've got PTI, they have NFL Live with pretend NFL analyst Mina Kimes. Well, that original content, that is not enough to carry the network. I would imagine that ESPN either breaks even or possibly even loses money on most of their shows. Ratings for NFL Live are in the pooper. They are paying Pat McAfee an 8-figure salary to draw ratings in the low 6 figures. The entire business model of ESPN is completely reliant on live sports. But look at what is happening in that industry. ESPN tries to get NFL Sunday Ticket, league gives it to YouTube. Thursday Night Football, it was given to Amazon Prime. ESPN owns the rights to college basketball, but the biggest revenue generator in that sport, it belongs to Turner and CBS, March Madness. But we have the real March Madness. We have women's basketball. Until this past year, that tournament has been a huge embarrassing failure in the ratings, and once Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese move on to the WNBA dump, that's probably where it's going to return. For years now, ESPN has been pushing subscribers to ESPN Plus, their streaming service. They made the UFC exclusive to the platform, didn't work. They've made low-level college basketball and college football exclusive to the platform, didn't work. They wanted to make WWE exclusive to ESPN Plus. They went with Peacock. I read something the other day that said by 2025, ESPN wants to be off linear television altogether, and they want their subscribers paying for ESPN Plus. A very lofty, unrealistic goal. Let me tell you the problem with that. In the third quarter of this year, ESPN generated $4.3 billion in revenue, $854 million in profit. Guess where over half of that money came from? Just take a wild guess. Cable and satellite providers. There is not enough incentive for people to subscribe to ESPN Plus. And all of this is happening, all of this is taking place at the worst possible time for ESPN. Profits, revenue, declining, network hemorrhaging billions of dollars. And guess what's coming up for renewal? Their contract with the NBA. The NBA is the only thing that is keeping ESPN afloat. Well, KC, that's not true. They have college football. They have Monday Night Football. Yeah, that's not enough to carry a sports network for 12 months. College football is a regional sport. ESPN lost the Big Ten to CBS. Guess which network everyone in the Midwest is going to be watching every fall? CBS. The NBA carries ESPN for 10 months of the year, October through July. If ESPN loses the NBA, it's over. And it's entirely possible that is going to happen. NBC's going after the NBA, and they're in a much better position than ESPN. For one, NBC doesn't need the NBA. Sure, it'd be nice to have it, but NBC, they have thousands of hours of fresh content they produce every year. NBC is going to drive up the price, and they have a lot of leverage, something ESPN doesn't have. Adam Silver's already stated he is looking to triple the NBA's broadcast rights fees. Now, I don't remember the exact number. I think the current rate is $2.5, maybe $3 billion every year. Adam Silver wants $8.5, $9 billion. How is ESPN going to afford that? I just told you their profit down to $1.5 billion. How are they going to afford to pay the NBA $9 billion when the league is averaging 1.5 million viewers on their network? NBC is much more attractive to the NBA because it's network television. The only reason that Disney released ESPN's financials separately, they are looking for outside investors to invest in the company. Disney is looking to sell 20% of the network. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if Disney wanted to offload the entire network, but I don't know if anyone would be willing to buy it. Over the summer, Disney approached the NBA, asked if they were interested in owning a piece of ESPN. Adam Silver said, "Fuck off. We're not investing in your dump. We already own a dump. It's called the WNBA." I think Disney approached the NFL too. Now, obviously, the NFL had no interest. Why would they? Why would either one of these leagues have interest? They don't need ESPN. ESPN needs them. 2 or 3 years ago, I told you guys that ESPN would cease to exist by 2030. My stance has not changed. With their current business model, I don't know how ESPN can survive. Live sports are becoming more expensive to produce and broadcast, while ESPN is losing millions of subscribers and billions of dollars. If ESPN folds, you think that's going to impact the NBA? They'll just move to another network, or they will start a streaming service of their own, which I think is the direction these sports leagues are heading. Even if ESPN had 50 million subscribers on ESPN Plus, that would only generate $6 billion a year at $10 a month. Now you throw in advertising, that bumps it up to what, maybe 8, 9, maybe 10 billion? How is ESPN going to afford live sports? Like I said, the only reason they have been able to for decades is because millions of people were paying for ESPN who weren't watching it. The glory days are over. The money train has become the Bruce caboose. But let me know what you think. Disney releases ESPN's financials separately, showing billions of dollars in lost profit and revenue. Is there any way that ESPN can survive? Now, I don't see it. I think ESPN is done by 2030, but what do you think? Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. I appreciate you guys and your continued support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.